On August 1st, 2015, the New York Times published an article discussing the phenomenon of RBF, otherwise known as resting bitch face. This article defines the phenomenon as a face that, when at ease, is perceived as angry, irritated, or simply expressionless. People readily draw interpretations of your expressions and body movement regardless of what your intention behind that movement was. And while people may focus on each other's faces, our entire bodies communicate messages all the time. This lesson will cover the concept of kinesics, defined as the study of nonverbal communication that transmits messages through the use of body movement. We commonly refer to this as body language. There are many facets of kinesics that you can focus on, but we're going to focus on 4. First, the eyes and face, then gestures, then body movement, and finally, attire. As stated earlier, people give special attention to the face and eyes. Eye contact is critical in public speaking. It has the power to influence how people think of you and the topic that you are discussing. The size of the audience determines how much direct eye contact you can make. With an audience of about 30 people, such as a class, it is important to make eye contact with every audience member at some point in your speech. Think about keeping eye contact with one person for a complete thought. Jumping your eye contact from person to person too quickly makes you look skittish. Holding eye contact for too long starts getting a little creepy. For people with difficulty making eye contact, looking at a person's tip of the nose or at their forehead is close enough to their eyes that oftentimes they can't tell that you're not looking at them directly. Facial expression is also important. Our eyes, eyebrows, forehead, and mouth communicates to the audience how we feel. If our facial expressions do not match our vocals, the audience will not believe the vocals alone. Since getting our audience to feel something as a result of our speech, facial expressions are critical. If we do not feel something for our speech, our audience never will. Gestures add an important element to any speech. There are different types of gestures, like illustrator gestures. When was the last time you read a book with pictures in it? When you were a kid? Hopefully it was within the past couple of days when you read your textbook. What goes through your mind when you look through a textbook for the first time and you see there are absolutely no pictures in it? Is it, oh my god, this class is going to be awful? Did you consider dropping the class? We as an audience consider illustrations very important. In public speaking, there's no difference. Your hands and arms become the illustrators to your message. Practice some. Use your hands to show the size of something, the speed of something. Your hands can also illustrate how you feel about something. Straight fingers and sharp movement can illustrate anger or frustration or a serious message. Loose fingers and fluid or circular movement can illustrate a more relaxed or happy feeling. Also consider gestures having the same function of highlights. When we gesture, we're highlighting the words we are saying. Therefore, communicating to your audience this is something important to pay attention to. The next type of gestures are called adapter gestures. Anyone who has traveled a bit knows that they have to bring on electrical adapters if they go to certain other countries. This is kind of the same thing, that you need to adjust your environment in order to adapt to the situation. Both make sense. Like the electricity running through the wires in our walls, we have energy in our bodies. When in a new and sometimes frightening situation, like public speaking, we generate more energy than usual, adrenaline. Our body must release this energy, and therefore we move in ways we are unaware of that also communicate our nervousness. But gestures are just one type of body movement that adds meaning to your speech. Another way to move your body is what you do with your entire body during a presentation, namely where you stand at any given point during the speech. Now, the environment helps determine what type of movement is best. Transition walks, leaning forward, etc. Try to avoid full body movement adapters like pacing. This is where we talk a little bit about what's called the speaker's triangle. It's called a triangle because that's the shape that it makes on the floor if you're looking from a bird's eye view. All speeches should start with an even number of audience members on the left and right. Once a person starts speaking, they get through their introduction if they're following a linear organization. Then they walk. They take 4 or 5 deliberate, confident steps to the left or to the right. The meaning behind this is to indicate that not only is your speech transitioning verbally, but non-verbally. The reason why it is called a transition walk is because you commit yourself to walking during the transitions for every transition. This means between the introduction and first body point, the first and second body point, the second and third body point, and between the third and conclusion. Plan it out so when you transition walk into your conclusion, you end up back in the center of the room. Aside from these transition walks, your feet should always be planted. Finally, let's discuss attire. Now, we've all been told not to judge a book by its cover, but that doesn't mean you can't have a good-looking cover. Your physical appearance can make all the difference in public speaking situations. It is often how you communicate your very first impression. People make judgments on your clothing choices. It communicates how important you consider your message to be. Wearing clothing that is appropriate to you, your audience, the occasion, and your topic. Don't wear clothing or jewelry or style your hair in a way that is distracting for the audience. Don't deliver speeches with sunglasses or hats on. Make sure you don't have things hanging out of your pockets like keys or lanyards. And always be aware of the situation in which you're being asked to speak. Is it professional or is it more celebratory? Kinesics is one type of nonverbal communication that has many parts. Some of those parts including the eyes and face, gestures, body movement, and attire. You can now incorporate effective nonverbal communication into your presentations. Make conscious decisions about when you're going to use gestures. Practice the transition walk. Make sure you've chosen out your outfit for the day of the speech. RBF is an example of nonverbal communication that has made its way into mainstream news. But perhaps you can avoid the pitfall of RBF by making a conscious decision about your facial expressions.